Often when people find out that I make party games and that I've had a couple games published, they want to know how I made games or how I ever got them out there. So I thought I'd talk about it briefly. I called this Making a Game, How Far Will an Idea Go? Because when I would get ideas, I knew that I probably wasn't going to make a fortune on these ideas, but I wanted to see how far they'd go. How many people would actually play my games that I made. So I used to keep a notebook, and I'd write down any ideas that came to mind. And I love this Einstein quote. He said, "Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour, and it seems like a minute." That's relativity. I really liked that quote. I thought there could be a party game from there because of this idea of comparing things and how they looked different compared to other things, related to other things. In my head, that evolved into this. It was a bunch of cards with words on them. I remember the first set that I made had light and chocolate in there. I don't know about these other words, I can't remember. But I had a small deck of cards and I put these words on here and I showed it to my wife and we played. And the key question in the game, I think, was which one of these do you need the most? And that relativity idea came in there because of most. And so we had one key mechanic that always stayed with the game. Instead of everybody having their own cards, 5 cards were placed in the middle of the table, and everybody ranked the same cards in some way. And you were trying to guess how your partner would rank them, something like that. I specifically did not want to do like apples to apples, where everybody had their own cards, and some people got luckier than others. So I remember putting that in right from the beginning. This was probably in 2001 when I played this. After that first game, my wife and I decided that the real question was not which one do I need most, but which one is most important. And that really was the birth of my game, What's It To You? In the summer of 2001, I went to Protospiel. It was the first Protospiel. Some friends came up with this idea of a game design convention, and I was at the first one. I kind of got brought in as one of the co-founders, but I didn't do much of the original planning. I carried it on through the other years for a little while. And you can see the website for Protospiel right here, and we have some articles on the site. Right here is a series I wrote on how I make games and how I suggest that you could make games. Here is how I made What's It To You in even more detail than I'm going in right now. But what I learned at Protospiel was that some designers really went into great lengths to make their prototypes look nice. I was using cards and handwritten letters a lot of time, and they were doing artwork. So I tried to do some arrows. I made characters that were up and down, and I made about 120 words for my game What's It To You. The second year when I went to Protospiel, I learned that people were selling their games, very cheap handmade games like this. So I went to Office Max, and for 10 bucks I ran off a few copies of my game. I put them on the internet and I sold them. That was in 2003. Tom Vassell played it, wrote a good review for it on Board Game Geek, so that was encouraging. Then Bernie DeKoven did a short write-up on it on his blog at the time, and I sold enough of these, not a ton, but enough that I was tired of making them by hand. So my friend Terry Carr, who owns Fair Play Games, he said he would put up some money and we would print these at a local printer. I had a friend that I met online, Scott Starkey, draw the pictures. He did nicer artwork, put my characters in some funny situations. I love some of the cards. This is still my avatar on Board Game Geek. We sold a few of these throughout 2004, but then at the end of the year, it was picked by Games Magazine as one of the top games of the year. So if you go to the Fun Again website, they always feature the Games Magazine award winners. It was Party Game Nominee 2005. That actually was in November 2004. I was really encouraged that they picked my game for that. And the print run that we did of about 200 games sold out very quickly by that Christmas, and we were trying to decide at that point if we wanted to make a larger print run or if I wanted to sell it to another publisher. And I actually lost some momentum in that time because it took us a long time to decide that we wanted to print it ourselves. It sat with some publishers that took too long to decide, Finally, at the end of 2005, we decided we would print this, and it didn't come out until 2006 in the summer. But this version of the game, we created 3,000 copies. These were printed in China, which was the only place we could afford at the time to make that many. Again, this was my friend Terry Carr from New World Games or Fair Play Games. If you want to buy board games, check out Fair Play Games, because that's an online retailer. He put up the money for this, and quite frankly, we didn't know how to sell a party game because it took a few years and it wasn't gaining momentum. We had lost that momentum from Games Magazine. It didn't sell terribly well, but Tim Walsh, who is an agent and a game designer, he is known for his game Blurt and Tribond, which you might have heard of. He somehow found a copy of What's It to You, and he liked it. He contacted me in 2009 and said that he thinks he could sell the game for me. And that's where this comes from. This is the game Oh Really by Find It Games. This came out in 2010. It is the same 200 cards, more or less, from the 2006 edition. They added a board. Notice you still put 5 cards on the table, just like my original one that I played with my wife 9 years before this came out. They use ranking cards similar to what I did, and like I said, about the same 200 words that we came up with over the years. This game is available all over North America. I've seen it in family Christian stores, and mostly you can find it easily online. And one of my favorite things that I found on Board Game Geek, to answer the question of how far will an idea go, I love this. Somebody did a geek list on Board Game Geek, and I, as a former math teacher, was encouraged to see Greek letters. This gamer in Greece, I haven't talked to this person, but he liked the game. This quote says something to the effect of, "It's a great party game for couples." So I assume that in Greece, when couples play party games, they get along a little better than what they do when I see them playing my game. But I just thought it was fascinating that this idea I had here in the US, played with my wife once and we liked it, and it's kind of grown on its own out of my own pocket. I haven't spent much more than $100 on it, and it's made its way to Greece, and it's still going.